would Donald Trump do on the competency test if at 76 years old?
Nikki Haley, the former U.S. ambassador to the UN under Donald Trump, as well as the former South Carolina governor, is already a disaster. So, of course, she has now announced that she is going to run to take on Donald Trump to become the candidate for the Republican Party for president. There is no shot in hell. And I'm not even sure if she really wants it based on how humiliating these appearances are. So before I get to these clips, quickly here, if you want one of these awesome shirts, look at this, The Rational National. And it's also see-through if you got a green screen. Go to therationalnational.com/merch. Link is below the video in the description box. And I do a personal video message to each and every person that buys something on the store. So if you want a personal message from me, if that's something that you really desire, I will send that to you. And in fact, I got a couple of outstanding people, in case you're watching. I will get to you. I get to everybody eventually. But let's get to these clips now. So this is her first appearance last night on Sean Hannity, shortly after officially announcing that she's running for president. And this is, I'll get to my commentary. I'll show you the clip. First, I want to give credit here to Aaron Rupar. I am so glad Aaron Rupar exists. So he's one of these people that watch these terrible shows, clip out the important pieces, and allow the rest of us to bathe in how insane all these people are. But thanks again to Aaron Rupar for clipping all this stuff out and putting it on Twitter. Let's get to this clip here. Haley on Hannity. Let's watch.
If you had to delineate where, say, you and President Trump differ on issues, where would you start?
Well, first, let's say in reference to Whoopi, you know, the thought of me getting into the race makes the liberals' heads explode. And so I welcome it because it shows we're doing something right.
Okay, I don't know what Whoopi Goldberg said. What? Who? I can assure you, very few liberal heads even know you exist, let alone are they exploding. But let's continue.
You know, when it comes to what we're looking at now, listen to the first 20 minutes of your show. Look at everything that's wrong in this country and tell me we don't need new leadership. But the difference is we need new generational leadership. We have to leave the status quo. We have to leave this chaos behind, and we've got to start talking about the future. You need a Washington outsider that's...
First, this idea, all these candidates now are going to pretend to try to be against the status quo. The idea that the former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a former governor is leaving the status quo. This is the status quo. So I'm not even sure what she's trying to argue here, but she understands that there is a real desire to not have a typical politician. So she's trying to pretend that she's not one of those, even though she clearly is.
It's going to come in and say, yes, I understand that families are having to pay more to make their grocery bill. I understand that they are worried about their children who may never get back from what they lost during COVID. I understand the fact that when someone's factory leaves town, he's worried that his future went with it. I understand that you should not have Americans looking up at the sky and seeing a Chinese spy balloon looking back at them. This is insanity. And what we need are a lot.
By the way, there were Chinese spy balloons under Trump. As I discussed in my initial video in that story, they just never discussed it publicly, but let's continue this.
And what we need are a lot of changes. First of all, we've got too many politicians in D.C. that are past their prime. We have to have term limits in Congress. We need to see competency tests for any elected official over the age of 75. We've got to stop the spending addiction that is happening, that is causing inflation to go up. And we need to start realizing that we don't need our politicians getting on TV and talking. We need the people in D.C. doing, and we need to spark a fire up under them. And that's what I'm willing to do. And if you are tired of losing, because we've lost the last...
That was just a whole bunch of bullshit. The only actual policy in there was term limits, which most politicians now are at least pretending to support. But I have to remind you, the original question was, where does Nikki Haley differ with Trump on policy issues? And she hasn't named a single one.
7 out of 8 popular votes for president We're doing something wrong. If you're tired of losing, then join.
Hold up. Sorry, I got to repeat that. We missed that point.
Tired of losing because we've lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. We're doing something wrong. If you're
That is a point that she brought up initially as well in her announcement, or her run-up to her announcement, that they keep losing the popular vote. Yes, that's true. Any other person would look at that and think, then why do you keep winning presidential elections if the vast majority of people are not voting for you? The actual solution to that problem would be that the popular vote decide the president. But Nikki Haley's not going to argue that, because they know not a single Republican would ever have a chance again at winning the presidency if the popular vote actually decided the outcome in the election, as opposed to the Electoral College. So her argument is that she's going to bring out more people to vote, which is just completely insane.
you're tired of losing, then join me and go to NikkiHaley.com, because we are going to go and fight for a strong and proud America again.
Are you saying that the reason Republicans lost the popular vote, I mean, we have an electoral college vote system for the very reason that big cities like New York and big cities in New Jersey and Chicago and Los Angeles and San Francisco won't be deciding presidential elections?
See, Sean Hannity understands. Like, he understands that's why they win elections. Because if you're in a city, your vote doesn't mean as much as somebody who lives outside a city in a rural Republican area. So look, Hannity would like nothing more than to ignore that fact, because that really puts a spotlight on how uneven and broken and undemocratic the system is. But so anyways, point being, Nikki Haley could not name a single thing where she differs with Trump, would not attack him at all. You're not going to defeat Trump by pretending that you're just like him, or that you have no differences, and by ignoring him completely. We saw how that went in 2016. Why would all of a sudden the insane MAGA base, who I'm sure you've seen many clips of, why would they all of a sudden turn to Nikki Haley? In my initial video, Nikki Haley announcing, I show you a group of Republican women from her state of South Carolina, and they themselves say they're supporting Trump. They have this big group, this big right-wing women's group. They support Trump over their own former governor. Why would anybody in the rest of the country back you? Now, I did, in my initial video on her announcement, discuss, I don't think she's doing this to win. I think ultimately this is what I think the plan is. I think you're going to have several candidates jump in this race in an attempt to challenge Trump, or pretend they're challenging Trump. And ultimately, they're going to, what I think is going to happen is at some point, they're all going to drop out, back DeSantis, and try and push DeSantis up over Trump, because they understand that DeSantis has a better shot in a general election than Donald Trump does. That's what I think they're going to try to do. I don't think it's going to be successful, but we're going to see. Because I at least that's what I think's happening. Because I can't imagine that Nikki Haley thinks she can win. It's possible her ego's even that big, but I think she's more aware than that. At least I hope she is. Otherwise, good God, how disconnected are you? But now let's get to a couple of clips from Fox and Friends. So these actually have not seen, I've only seen these quotes. So we're going to discover this together. And from my understanding, it's the same thing. She's not going to be attacking Trump, and it's going to be, once again, a complete mess in how to run a campaign against him.
I know you were on last night with Sean, and he was asking you how you differentiate yourself from Donald Trump. And you said originally that you had called him to ask his, not permission, but just to tell him you're going to run. And he did give you his blessing. I know he's your friend. He appointed you to UN ambassador. How do you balance that? How do you handle it? And what are you going to say when the left says, because they are saying this already when you flip around to other channels, or even, you know, when we interview Democrats on this channel, they say you flip-flop. 1 minute you're friends with Donald Trump, the next minute you're not. How do you answer that?
Well, first of all, President Trump is my friend. I was honored to work with him in the administration. I thought he was the right president at the right time, and that remains to be the truth. We had a great conversation. I told him that I was doing this because I thought it was time for a new generation. I thought we needed to leave the status quo. And
again with the status quo, it's worth noting here that it's not liberals saying that she's flip-flopped, though maybe some have. It's Trump himself, because Nikki Haley said last summer that she would not be running for president if Donald Trump runs. Trump himself criticized Nikki Haley for now running and flip-flopping on that issue. But because they don't want to couch that criticism in being a Trump criticism, they act like it's liberals saying it, but it's Donald Trump himself saying it.
And we needed to move forward. You know, the liberals, they love to give me a hard time. I was doing interviews yesterday, and what they don't understand is I don't have to be 100% Trump or 100% anti-Trump. That's not how I am. President Trump will tell you, I say what I think. When you're doing something right, I support you. When you're doing something wrong, I'm going to call you out for it. But at the end of
And what are those things? Again, there's no specifics in any of this.
the day, that's how I square it. But I'm not kicking sideways in this race. I'm kicking forward. It is Joe Biden who's the president. It's Joe Biden who's put us in this situation. It's
What situation? This is not going to go well. Again, if her goal is to actually take down Trump, this is not going to go anywhere. And look, I don't think anyone has a shot. DeSantis, there was a time based on data polling, it looked like DeSantis was going to be like the next person and he could take on Trump. He doesn't have the fight in him. Maybe he hasn't shown it yet. Maybe he does. But from what I've seen so far, he is also unwilling to actually attack Donald Trump directly. That is the only way to take down Trump is to be the bigger baboon. You have to beat your chest. You have to be more ridiculous, more outlandish. You have to emasculate him. That's the only way to take Trump down. Because if you're going to, even like little criticisms, won't do much. You have to be the alpha in the room. If you're not that, you're going to lose. This is how Republican voters respond to candidates. It's all emotional. So if they see on stage during a debate or in these interviews that one person is on the attack all the time, one person is more entertaining than everybody else, that's who is going to stand out to them. The idea that Nikki Haley just doesn't have it in her at all. DeSantis, I haven't seen enough to know for sure, but from what we've seen so far, definitely also doesn't have it. But here's the last clip. Haley on Fox and Friends.
How would Donald Trump do on the competency test if at 76 years old?
You know, I think he did great the last time he did it. I have no reason to think he wouldn't do well this time, but I do think we need it, and it's across the board. I don't think it's for president. I think you look at Congress. Look at all the members of Congress. You have to start doing this for elected officials. When people send someone to Washington, they need to know they're at the top of their game. That's why I think those competency tests are important. We can't have someone like Joe Biden who's asleep at the wheel and have China sitting there threatening us and us wondering if he actually knows what's going on.
So Nikki Haley is using the big point of her campaign is that we need generational change because these old people got to go. They aren't competent. Yet she's given a question about Trump and his competency, and she just compliments him. The one person that clearly not competent is also old. Again, going to her point about generational change, he is clearly one of the two individuals that she means when she's talking about that, but when it comes to a direct question about him, she is unwilling to actually attack him. This is just completely embarrassing. Last little bit here.
This is good for America to do competency tests. This isn't about one person. This is about everything that's happening in D.C.
Yeah.
How would Donald...
Okay, that's the whole thing. This is... I don't even know if there's much value in covering this campaign anymore. I will be shocked, absolutely stunned, if Nikki Haley makes it to the first voting state. I think she's going to drop out long before then. Because why would anybody give her campaign money? Why would anybody even try, again, unless it's part of a larger strategy of giving all these candidates money in an attempt to try and take down Trump. That's the only way this campaign continues, if that strategy is actually in play. But if someone is backing her, if some billionaire is backing her thinking that she actually has a shot, you are wasting your money. But whatever, your money, waste it. Absolutely ridiculous campaign, but I don't know. I guess it's fun to watch a train wreck.